well-engineered play. They got plenty of good options available. We'll see what Herrera does bring to the table. Herrera is also an Open Series champion, won a Standard Open many moons ago when we were in Baltimore, so seen it done. Skilled guy, name kind of flies under the radar, but he's off to a nice start here at 6-0-1, playing against Max Williams, who is 7-0 with Elves. Maybe Elves is a better choice than Ross Merriam thought.
Perhaps. Although Ross has a, he's got his finger on the pulse of the format. You can still, even when decks are not necessarily the best choice, you can still run pretty hot with them. Run your right matchups.
Patrick, when it's chilly, y'all chilly. I'm chilly when it's snow in Philly. Freeway.
That's the freeway line I got confused with the other line, which is from some guest on a Clips album. I'll have to look it up. It's going to bother me for the rest of the tournament.
Did I quote that correctly? Did I do a good job?
Yeah, you got it.
That? Okay. Just want to make sure. Thank you. That's how it was tweeted at me, so I just want to make sure. I think pronunciation is key.
There's a match here.
I don't have that. I don't have that flow, as they say. Ancestral Visions has been suspended.
There we go.
Back at it. Dryad we're going to come off a Green Sun Zenith. I'm working on it. I'm working on my flow.
So something very nice for Joseph here is he is playing 2 main deck copies of Toxic Deluge. So he's got a little more game one than these decks typically do.
Toxic Deluge is a card we haven't seen for a little while.
That card is a beating. I mean, a part of it's a consequence of Treasure Cruise pushing out black attrition decks for the most part, but that card is extremely powerful.
Here's a Brainstorm. I'm going to draw 3 cards, Brainstorm and Bayou. And a copy of Tarmogoyf. Of course, 2 cards will have to go back here from Herrera.
Courser of Crufix.
I'm curious about that inclusion as a 2 of. Probably better than we think.
That's another card that feels like if you're trying to beat Blue-Red Delver, that's a good starting point. 4 toughness, gains a lot of life.
Manipulate your draws. There's a lot going on there.
Listen, if Bramaz is good in Legacy, Courser Crufix is a much more powerful card objectively.
That's true.
And it's good in
it can't be that bad.
And it's good in a lot of the same respects, too.
Here's a Nettle Sentinel. If Herrera didn't know before, he certainly knows now, is there's a Cradle. Here's a Heritage Druid. This is a good draw. There's 3 mana from the Cradle. This is an Elvish Visionary. Trigger, draw a card. Oof, this is the second turn of the game.
Yep.
3 green. So 4 green available. So let's see what Williams wants to do with this mana. There's the 4. Another Visionary, perhaps, or some way to draw another card. Natural Order doesn't do very much in this board, so here's Nettle Sentinel. That on tap there. Down to 2. There's Wirewood.
Wirewood's not shabby here.
Yep. Pick this up. Untap that. Up to 5. Down to 3. Gonna want to untap those Nettle Sentinels. Don't forget about that. I think we can say he forgot now.
Yeah, they may. I don't know if they would necessarily let you backpedal in the spot.
Yeah.
But not too much harm done as he's able to untap again.
Yeah, it's just a missed opportunity at more mana.
Yeah.
That's the issue there. Up to 5. Pick this up. Untap there. Those have been used, so they'll be turned upside down. Down to 3. Take a draw, Will Williams. See what else he wants to do here, if anything. I mean, this engine's just so much more powerful than people give it credit for.
It's true.
Up to 6 green.
I mean, forget about killing someone before their visions goes off. Kill someone before their visions ticks down to 2.
Yeah. Yep, there's Zenith. It's just going to be for 1, so it's going to be another Wirewood. Yep. Nelson, of course, will untap because Zenith is a green spell.
And Max may be trying to do the thing, maybe I can cobble together a kill this turn if I generate enough mana and draw the right cards. And if not, I almost certainly have it next turn.
Yeah. I think he has to set up for next turn because, again, he did miss the opportunity at 3 mana on that one iteration because he could have 7 right now as opposed to the 4 that he has. He actually has 6 now, so it could be 9. It's a slight misstep, and it doesn't, you know, maybe he would be able to get the job done this turn, maybe not. It's hard to say. Going to return the Visionary play here, untap there. He's doing a nice job of generating a boatload of mana.
Well, he's got 5 floating according to his die, so, I mean, this puts him up to 8. So if this is Craterhoof, one of his Nettle Sentinels and the Dried Arbor are eligible to attack. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 24, 29, 32. That's a lot.
Turn 2 kill. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Story checks out.
That was a turn 2 kill. That's the first time I've seen Elves kill on turn 2.
Yeah, it's been a really long time.
That's the first time I've ever seen it happen. There's been a lot of talk about turn 2 kills being possible with the deck. If you get the certain sequence of cards, Matt Nass always chimes in and says you can do, you know, some pretty busted stuff if things do line up correctly, and things just lined up correctly.
And as you mentioned, Max most likely shorted himself a mana there too, and was still able to get it done on the second turn. Very impressive stuff.
That was very, very impressive. Max Williams does win game number 1 here over Joseph Herrera. Elves up a game here over Charlotte Sultai very quickly, but Herrera has some nice options in his sideboard here. He's got a Sylvan Library, 4 copies of Thoughtseize, 2 Duresses, a Pithing Needle, a 3rd copy of Toxic Deluge, a 1st copy of Night of Souls Betrayal, 2 copies of Disfigure, 2 Chills, and Vendilion Click. There are some nice ones here for sure.
Removal, removal, removal. 2 Disfigures, Night of Souls Betrayal, the 3rd Toxic Deluge. Those are all great. Past that, the second wave of cards that I like are the 4 copies of Thoughtseize and the Pithing Needle.
Now, there are some solid options here.
Yeah, that's a great sideboard here for Joseph.
Max, I'm going to imagine maybe the Black Splash.
Touching Black, 3 Abrupt Decay, Null Rod, Pithing Needle, a Sylvan Library, 4 copies of Thoughtseize, 2 Cabal Therapies, a Scavenging Ooze, a Crozan Grip, and a Progenitus. Yeah, I just don't know if you really want to mess with any of this, honestly, based on what he saw.
Might not be a reason to.
Maybe some Thoughtseizes, but I would sideboard very light here.
Well, for how easy that game was, why change anything?
Exactly. I also just don't think there's any home runs he has here. I guess the copy of Sylvan Library is very good, so that's fine, but not much of a sideboard here, really.
Well, fair enough. These players are going to get ready for what we imagine will be a longer game, too?
In terms of minutes or turns?
Both.
Probably, definitely turns. Very unlikely Joe gets killed on the second turn again.
It does seem unlikely, but it's certainly possible, even though we haven't seen it for a while from Ellis. But while we do wait, regionals coming up here in the winter, February 7th. Fantastic brand new playmat.
Yeah, very excited. The date and the venues have been announced, and you can head over to starcitygames.com/regionals for more information and a free exclusive playmat to the first 200 players that sign up at each of our regional championships.
This playmat, again, will be available, starcitygames.com/regionals for more information about that. Plant your flag on February 7th at the closest regionals to you. Where we will see if Joseph Herrera can actually, I don't know, play a 3rd turn of the game. Who knows? I don't think it's asking too much.
No, it's not asking too much. But hey, listen, when you suspend Ancestral Visions, you're saying to your opponent, you better kill me quickly. You're the one who started it, really. You threw the first punch.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's on you to kill me before this goes off.
Or you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
And Max said, okay then, I will.
I guess Joseph did throw the first punch.
He did.
He started the whole thing. Big mistake there.
It's like, you know, when there's a physical escalation, the first person to actually shove someone typically is the person who started the fight. And I would say Joseph shoved first.
It's the second person who always gets caught, though.
Right, that's typically true.
Yeah. It's a real shame. Watch a lot of professional sports. The second person is always the one who gets a technical foul.
Yeah, typically the case.
Mm-hmm. What are those refs even looking at out there?
So I think that Joseph's ultimately responsible for the outcome of game 1 there in multiple respects. Kept a hand light on disruption and also antagonized, is that the right word? He escalated the conflict.
Poke the bear.
Yeah.
That's what happened. And if I've learned anything from you, don't poke the bear.
Do not.
Yeah. 7 cards here for Herrera. Former Standard Open champion. We'll see what he can put together here. Thoughtseize among the cards he has. Looks like an Abrupt Decay as well.
Thoughtseize, Tarmogoyf for Abrupt Decay and some lands is a solid opening hand. It's not a, it's not ideal insofar as you can be exposed to Glimpse of Nature draws, but it's not a bad place to be.
Yeah, I think it's a hand where, you're not excited, but it's also a hand you're not going to mulligan.
There's a huge percentage of Max's hands that are going to struggle to beat this opening.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
it's good enough. It's not as good as it could be. You have a Toxic Deluge mixed in there, then you have an incredible hand.
It's very middle of the road.
Much like Charlotte Sultan in general, trying to play middle of the road Magic.
But the longer it goes, the better it goes for this deck.
Typically, yeah.
With the 2 Jaces and the 3 copies of the Liliana, I mean, they just want to play a longer game. Visions as well.
But it's cool to see Joseph here at 6-0-1. Still undefeated. This is the deck, if you ask people, what are the decks that you just can't play anymore because of Treasure Cruise? This would be near the top of the list. Probably Classic Jund is really high on the list, and then this deck as well. But Joseph proving people wrong so far.
Now this one's very high on the list that many people would consider unplayable given Treasure Cruise being in the format. Now, what's interesting is if Treasure Cruise goes away with the ban restricted announcement, maybe this deck comes back in a big way.
Definitely possible if that happens, though I think it's unlikely. If I were a betting man, I would bet against Treasure Cruise getting banned in Legacy.
I don't think it's going anywhere. I think it's staying for a little while. If Gristlebrand stayed during its reign of terror and then people finally figured it out, I don't think Treasure Cruise is going anywhere.
And it's possible, I'm going to throw this out there, maybe not a popular theory, but perhaps overall people have more fun playing Legacy when there are fewer wastelands in the room.
I could see that. It's been a nice change to not see a bunch of wastelands.
And a consequence of Treasure Cruise is Wasteland just makes a little bit less sense in the way the games play out.
Yeah. No, I could see for sure where people do enjoy the format more where, what happened? I lost the 2 wastelands.
Yeah.
You get to play your spells.
You do get to cast your spells in this format. More so than you used to.
Yeah, unless you get Belchered or something, and that deck is on a sharp decline.
But Belcher, that could have happened to you anyway.
Absolutely.
You've been Belchering people since what, 2009, 2010?
I took a break, but yeah.
Yeah.
Slow down on the Belchering. Those are the good old days.
The fast and loose days.
Yeah, teach them a lesson. Wild Nicodle, huh?
I was that guy for a little while.
You sure were. I would have loved getting paired against you. There's a Bayou. This is a Thoughtseize. Now Max on a mulligan here to 5, so this is going to be a much more powerful Thoughtseize than normal. Not a bad hand here for Williams.
No, this is a solid 5 cards against what Joseph has here.
Yeah.
You kind of want to take Abrupt Decay because you have Tarmogoyf in hand, but leaving your opponent with Grand Sun Zenith, Deathrite Shaman, and Glimpse is really risky. You take the Glimpse, the rest of Max's hand is functional. You take Deathrite Shaman, and that's probably the best place to go here, but if Joseph doesn't clock him really fast, it's possible Max can kill the Tarmogoyf, build up a hand, and actually do something.
I do wonder what he wants to select, but you do see the selection there. Deathrite Shaman going to bite the dust. Of course, Thoughtseize is a card that's just going to clear a path for the rest of his hand. There's a Zenith, going to search up a Dryad Arbor.
But for a critical mass deck like Elves, where you need a lot of resources to do your thing, kind of as you saw game 1, Max needed as many cards to get his hand on. This is not a shabby 5-card hand. Max will get to play a little bit.
One of the better mulligans to 5 this deck can have. That is to be sure. And this deck is certainly capable of winning on a mulligan to 5 too. A couple Elvish Visionaries, a Wire with Symbiote thrown in there, and you've undone your mulligan pretty quickly. Looks like Pithing Needle the draw step.
Now keep in mind, if you're in Joseph's position here, post board, Natural Order is also a slightly different animal. Yes, you have some answers to Progenitus in Toxic Deluge and Liliana the Veil, but game one, you really just have to be concerned with Critical Mass because that's all Critical Hit Behemoth's about. Post-board, Max might be able to cheat you with Natural Order.
There's a needle. We will get confirmation on what this is naming in just a moment. And the Wirewood Symbiote has been shut down.
Joseph's hand is very removal heavy with Abrupt Decay and I believe Toxic Deluge. On top of that, with Max on 5 cards, Symbiote plus Visionary is a synergy Joseph's concerned about. So even though this needle is preemptive, I like naming that card.
Herrera asking for a ruling quickly on the text of a card. He is satisfied with what he has found, and we're going to go back Max Williams' way. And he will just draw and pass. So Herrera will draw a copy of Polluted Delta to go on with a Misty Rainforest. There is the Misty. And now here's a Tarmogoyf.
But this is not, I mean, the game's kind of shaping up in an awkward way here for Joseph because he's now has no pressure in play and a handful of removal spells against an opponent he knows has Glimpse and time to build up a hand.
No, there's no Visionary. Got no cantrip. And just pass the turn back. Herrera going to untap and draw. Copy Disfigure. More removal.
And it makes me wonder, maybe if Joseph would have been better served with that Thoughtseize, say take the Glimpse, let the board build up a little bit, deluge everything, and then go from there.
Disfigure takes care of Herrera's Dryad Arbor, leaving him with just 1 land before passing the turn back. In for one comes Elvish Visionary. Oh, no, there's a Nettle Sentinel. Plenty of things for the Toxic Deluge to eat at some point in the game. Brainstorm a big draw here. So 3 cards coming here for Herrera, and you already see he's got fetch lands in play. A Swamp, a Deathrite Shaman, and a Forest.
So this is the squeeze that Joseph's in right now. This board does not seem very good to deluge away, and Max will still be in a position where he has Glimpse. But if Joseph fails to do anything about this board, and Max draws Cradle, Max might just go crazy next turn.
Yeah. That's always the danger when playing against Elves, is very, very explosive.
And if Joseph is cracking his fetches here, I suspect that's because he's casting the Deluge. And, you know, like I said, this is not a great board to deluge away, and Max still has time to build up resources, but it is pretty risky to let Max untap.
I think this is a good enough board
Exactly.
to Toxic Deluge on.
It's a great way of describing it. It is good enough.
Because in this particular matchup and in a situation like this, and I think you've laid it out very well, you know, when you think of Toxic Deluge or Perish or what have you, it's not, I have to get 100 for 1. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
I think that's how a lot of people look at it, and that's the incorrect way to look at it. As long as I'm generating card advantage from the card, it doesn't have to be 100 for 1. It can be a 2 for 1 or a 3 for 1. That's good enough.
Especially with my opponent on 5 cards and
Yeah.
me having access to more removal in my deck and more sweepers down the line. You don't have to get it all.
There's a Glimpse. Here's a Heritage Druid. Draw a card. Oh, pass the turn back. And the draw step was another copy of Toxic Deluge.
Now Joseph with the awkward sweeper plus Deathrite Shaman hand.
Combo. I'm just going to pass the turn back.
He could play Deathrite hoping that Max would just deploy more one-touchless creatures, but given the pacing of the game, it's reasonable, I think, for Joe to say, okay, just cast some more stuff and then I'll deluge everything.
One thing to keep in mind here, too, is Joe's life total. 12's not a ton.
Well, like you mentioned before, I think the board now is just good enough to sweep away, especially because Joseph can follow up with Deathrite Shaman in the same turn.
Yeah, I think this board's a little bit different. Given the texture of Joseph's hand, he has an Abrupt Decay and a Disfigure now. So I think that if I'm in Joseph's spot here, I'm willing to pass the turn back because if you play a third elf, I can respond by killing it. I can kill a Heritage Druid. And I think that's what he's going to try to do.
Well, this line of play means that the risk here is Joseph takes 2, goes to 10, and if Max were to natural for Progenitus, you could not kill it, nor could Toxic Deluge kill it.
That is a huge issue.
So there's a concern there.
And it does make you wonder if Natural Order for Progenitus is something that's on Joseph's radar at this point.
I know that some people who do not like to go to that package against Sultai decks because they have so many Edict effects, and Herrera does have Toxic Deluge and Liliana the Veil, but by the same token, it is hard to build up a board against all their removal post-board, so Crater Hoof is a dodgy proposition.
Now this is interesting because Williams has sacrificed the Windswept Teeth here, and there is no response from Herrera. So what you mentioned about Progenitus being an option is very notable here. Now, things do get a little interesting on the Joseph Herrera side of the board. He does have a Deathrite Shaman in play, in which he could gain 2 life.
Yep.
And then Toxic Deluge everything away.
But still not where you would rather be, ideally.
Yeah, there's Natural Order.
You know, in that world, you have to go ahead and take care of your own Deathrite Shaman. You have 2 removal spells against whatever Max has left over. Not a bad spot to be in.
Yeah, there's Crater of Behemoth. And Herrera says, with the trigger on the stack, I'm going to have a response.
But even this is not too bad. I mean, Crater of Behemoth's big. It's outside of Abrupt Decay range. You can't disfigure it. It's not quite Progenitus, but this is still a problematic card for Joseph at this stage.
I agree. Disfigure is going to take care of Heritage Druid. So now when Behemoth's trigger does resolve, it's just going to be +1/+1. As it does count itself, after all. And in it comes. Can't forget, it has Trample as well with the trigger. But it doesn't have Trample all the time, just right now. This game is taking an interesting turn.
I mean, things were looking really bad for Max here, but Joseph's just had kind of this awkward draw. It's been hard for him to maximize all the resources he's brought to bear.
Yeah. It's a passing of the turn. Herrera going to draw another copy of Deathrite Shaman. And he can Toxic Deluge here. He'll have to go down to 1. That's what he's going to do. The follow-up is a Deathrite Shaman and pass the turn back.
So Deathrite Shaman plus Abrupt Decay is not a bad mixture of cards to have right here, but the game is a lot closer than I think you would have believed it to be a couple turns ago.
Yeah, for sure. Blue to Delta the draw, pass the turn back. Interested to see how Herrera is going to end up using his Deathrite Shaman here, if he wants to gain life or start draining a little bit. There's an Abrupt Decay to take Deathrite Shaman off the table. We'll find out if it was a drain or a gain there from Deathrite in just a moment. Delta the draw, pass the turn back.
Looked like a drain, and if that's the case, it looks like Joseph did not have much respect for the capacity for his Deathrite Shaman to get killed.
Yeah.
Because now he's at 1 and he has to kill everything for the rest of the game.
Every fetch land's a disaster, too, on the other side of the table, because that means a Dryad Arbor can come out of nowhere and finish him off for the last point of damage, and Abrupt Decay can't kill that.
Correct.
And there is a fetch land. Max sacrificing that very quickly, so perhaps he has a play in mind with this.
This had to be a pretty big plan here because, you know, doing this on the main phase, unless he's doing this for Natural Order right now, which maybe he is, because Crater Hoof is lethal.
Well, he definitely is. And Joseph's going to look at his hand. You see 2 copies of Abrupt Decay. or 1 copy of Abrupt Decay, excuse me, 2 fetch lands, 2 copies of Polluted Delta.
I guess if you assume your opponent's removal is Abrupt Decay, then this is also good.
Well, I mean, he
Wow.
got it right. Max Williams going to win this match over Joseph Herrera. 2 games to 0. Mulligan to 5 does not matter. Herrera too reactive in that sideboard game, and Williams is on to 8-0.
I think